Out there, she goes screaming, flying, tiger flies at the lights. Every night, we don't fight, favorite sight, live the sights, baby shows, and the escapades. Let's the arcade, pixelated pouring lesson, they unafraid. Karaoke screams, singing themes, heart and sleeves, anime dreams, person seems.
Good afternoon and welcome. It's your friendly neighborhood Goblin, the OG GM, coming to you live at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I am joined by Jack McCarthy of the Gobstein. So, Jack McCarthy of the Gobstein, what is going on? What is this amazing thing that I have volunteered myself to be part of?
Well,
please talk us through the thought pattern.
It's downright synchronistic because one day we were just crap posting about goblins, making jokes, sending stuff back and forth, and then one of the compadres, Mr. Big himself, says, "Hey, we should turn this into a game." And then another one who was involved, the guy who goes by Mortar McTrebuchet on X, says, "And we should turn it into a fundraiser for St. Jude's." And I said, "That sounds great. Let's do it." And that started around Christmas time, which it turns out, for those who don't know, that's a notoriously bad time to try and plan things.
Yes, yes.
But, lesson learned there. We will try and do all the planning around holidays before. But now we've got it up and running, and we're starting the recruitment of players. And we have turned this thing into a scenario that's designed to be a Braunstein. In other words, a scenario that will involve elements of role-playing, diplomacy, intrigue, spying, logistics, and strategy. And it'll be a sort of mashup between a role-playing game and a war game. The planned dates of it launches officially with the game being completely on February 22nd, and then we're going to play all the way through to March 15th, so the day before St. Patrick's Day. And on that day, we are going to host a live stream event where the war game that this scenario will culminate into is played out.
Okay, good. We've got a starting date on the 22nd then.
That is correct. Now, anyone who's been following it at all today has noticed that we've already been firming up players. What we did was we set a $30 buy-in for anyone who wants to participate and be part of the game. And since I'm going to be hosting the live stream through Rumble, that can handle 9 people. So with me being the DM, that left room for 8 players at the actual game session. So we've got all but one seat filled now, and that one's kind of tentatively. It might go somewhat to someone. I need to do some checking up and catch up on some paperwork and posts. But we are ready to go. We've started recruitment. We've sent things around, and already in our first day, we've hit 44% of our original funding goal. If things keep going at this pace, I'm going to have no choice but to raise the funding goal. I should have that problem.
That's a wonderful problem to have. Why is St. Jude's? Did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them?
No, our other guy, Mortar, who I was just talking about, he has a existing relationship with St. Jude. He's participated in other fundraisers for him, so that was what he suggested. So I said, okay, we'll look into that first, and went and checked it out. And the amazing thing is that St. Jude makes it so easy on their website, like what we're seeing in the background here. I was able to go directly there, set up my own fundraiser. I set up a team there. I set up myself as the game master, so you can have multiple people on the same team going towards the same fundraising goal, and have each of them be running their own little tiny fundraiser behind the scenes. So like on the current scene that we see, it's 41% because the people who donated directly to my ID, my account here, get counted towards that total. But now if you were to click the blue Jack Gobstein fundraiser that's right behind my profile pic, that'll take you to the other page directly to the right, just above, up a little bit. See the blue text, Jack Gobstein fundraiser, right above the red line, right below.
Oh, yeah, right here.
That's the one. Click on that. And then that is the main page, right? for the overall fundraiser. So you can see there's a slightly higher amount, 44% as opposed to 41%. And that's because if people were to donate on using the blue link that you see directly under the red button that says make a general donation to this fundraiser, that goes to it. The fundraiser in general, one person did kick in $30 for that today. If you were to click on donate to a group member, then you could pick someone who's already on the team. I'm the only one who has an account associated with this fundraiser at the moment, so you could fundraise directly to me, donate directly to me. If you were to click the other blue button that you were just hovering over, the fundraise with this group, that would prompt you to open up your own account to then be part of this fundraiser. So if anyone else wanted to jump in there and have a fundraiser to run alongside with mine, they could. It's right there. No one's chosen to do that yet. I don't know that I blame them.
Extra work. I'm sure a lot of people have questions about how does this work? You mentioned that word that has been so problematic the last couple of months, Bronstein.
I know. I thought it would build. It has built-in traction, right?
It has built-in traction. So how does this work? Somebody sits down and says, "I want to play," like me. So talk us through from day 1 through the 17th of March. How do we make stuff and do stuff, and what is it?
Okay, so a Bronstein is a style of play or a method of play, as opposed to any specific rule system. It's actually a way of running a game. It can be a single session. It can be an ongoing campaign. It can be how you run your campaign in general. But what it consists of is removing as much of the game and crunchy elements as possible and allowing the players to make decisions on behalf of their character, and their character is also leading a faction of sorts in the world. So someone who has signed up today, they're going to be creating a human knight, basically a high-level cleric. The faction that they represent is going to be the church that they're a high-ranking member of.
Okay.
So now, if we were to use an example, when we say game on, the 3 weeks leading up to the live stream event is going to be play by post on X, where people will send me orders. Well, today I'd like my goblins to go out and do some hunting for coal because we need extra coal, or whatever it is that you need.
Whatever it is. I think we know I'm going to be the goblins.
You are. Yes, that has been intimated once or twice, which I also want to talk to you about when your love affair with goblins began. But that's separate subject. But so essentially, we'll hammer out your character, she who is allowed to talk back, if I got that correct.
Yeah, she, he, they.
Okay, and that character will be in charge of a faction that we decide amongst the goblins, and maybe you get along with the goblins, the other goblin factions. Maybe you don't. That's going to be up to you to explore. Maybe there are doctrinal differences between your goblins and other goblins, where that your way of doing things is not the way that they want to do things. Right? Yeah. So what this opens up is levels and layers of role playing between the various players within the game. And it allows the opportunity of wheeling and dealing, of maybe, there's a goblin council where there's 3 or 4 goblins in the game, and you want things to go along path A, but another goblin wants to go path B. So can you convince the other 2 goblin factions to vote with you and go path A? That's going to be up to your role-playing and negotiating skills.
Cool. And people can contribute as much as they or as little as they want, I assume, since it's going to be every day.
Yes. So if you follow the links, they do have boxes for easy dollar amounts. However, there's a choose your amount on any donation page. So you can go as little as $5, I think. Mm-hmm. Now, this is another one. We have all of our seats filled. People who donate to the Gobstein will be able to tag me on X and tell me what they want to have happen in the game. If they take $20 and donate and say, I want to boost OGGM's Goblin Forces, then I say, okay, and I'm going to make the notes and I'm going to contact you and tell you what you gained from that.
Awesome. Yes.
Right.
Support the Goblins.
Right. And so when a person who's not a participant or player in the game donates, we're going to go ahead and apply that to whatever army they say. They can choose a side, either goblins or humans generally, or if they want to boost a specific player, like, oh, I like Mr. Big, I like what he's doing, I'm going to go ahead and boost his army by $50 or whatever your donation amount is. I'm working in terms of this system, a slight segue. We settled on Shadow Dark, which if I believe you are a fan yourself. Yeah.
Well, I'm a fan, and it's an easy system to work with, and it's got the name recognition, and I'm enough of a shill to recognize that it's got the name recognition. So I hooked my wagon to Kelsey Starr for as long as I can, because I know people are still rabid about Shadow, and I love Kelsey. So yeah.
I agree. I think Kelsey deserves every ounce of acclaim that she's gotten for this. And it's a very approachable game. It's an easy rule set. Anyone who's experienced in any edition of Dungeons and Dragons can pick it up and run with it like that. Now, the piece de resistance is the mass combat rules that have recently been released. This is called Hell March. It's currently available for $5 on DriveThruRPG in PDF format. The author is Alchemic Raker. So shout out to Alchemic Raker. But the second those came out just earlier this week, or last Monday they were released, and I bought it myself, read it, and I said instantly, this is what we got to do. This adds the one thing we need for Shadow Dark, a mass combat system, so I can actually handle large numbers of figures. That way, if it comes down to 100 goblins facing 100 humans on the battlefield, these rules have us covered. The bones of it are essentially chainmail for those who are familiar with it. He's just tweaked it to fit the Shadow Dark rule system.
Cool.
Great stuff. It is great stuff. And everyone who signs up, all the players get a free copy of Hell March. If you have signed up and not gotten a free copy of Hell March from me, please hit me up. Direct message me on X. Send me a message here, however you want to do it.
Oh, I paid for mine. I figured he should, get the credit for it. So
he did. Well, and the thing was, it was $5. I actually went into it and said, I'll buy everyone who needs one a copy at full price. I don't care. And Alchemic Raker went out of his way to reach out to me directly and say, hey, no, let me give you a discount code. We'll get you through that. I don't want anyone breaking the bank. So he's excited to be part of this and supporting us too. And he has agreed to be on tap for me as a rules consultant. He's, a system master. So that way, if I have any questions or troubles, and he'll also watch the live stream, I'm sure. And if I make any mistakes, he can call me out publicly. I'm looking forward to that.
So has there been any direct contact with St. Jude, or do they have absolutely no idea what they have coming towards them?
I got the St. Jude's live play account liked one of my posts today.
Oh, good.
And that's the funny thing is, as much as we've been bantering around, then this is a pretty widely known idea in our little indie TTRPG community on X. We have been lax in tagging the St. Jude's accounts directly so that they know that we're doing this. So we've started doing that now, and hopefully we'll garner a little attention, maybe earn a couple of retweets. Hey guys, you hear me over there? Maybe give us a retweet. But no, in general, I am so pleased by the response already. I set a very modest goal of $1,000 because, I have virtually no social media footprint, and neither does Mortar or Mr. Big. We're all really small accounts.
Me too.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for giving us the boost by bringing me on here.
Oh, hey man, it's a great charity. I'm all about helping out the kids. And
yeah.
It's just, the second it got mentioned and I saw the first post, I was like, oh, I got to join this.
Yeah. I recall you were offering your products for raffle, which is another thing to mention. I forgot. Even part of that is you and some other indie TTRPG publishers have offered up products to be raffled off during successive rounds.
I sent you guys PDFs, and I have some physical copies to make available too of stuff.
That's brilliant. And that's one of the things, this is a total side note, but I need to hammer out the logistics of that somehow, because it doesn't make sense to me for you to ship it to me and then me to turn around.
No, I think you'll tell me you tell me who won, and I'll ship it from here.
Got it. Yeah. So that's on my to-do list still, is getting an actual list of all the prizes we have to give away. We've got a t-shirt store in the works that has not been released to the public yet. I think we're still finalizing some design.
T-shirt.
I know, me too. And again, that's been set up so that it's directly a fundraiser to St. Jude. So even all of the merchandise sales that we set up, it's going to help the kids.
Great. Kids are important. Okay, cool. So and after it ends on St. Patrick's Day, conveniently the day my mom goes into surgery. What are your plans after it? Are you going to publish it? Is it going to continue? Where do you want to see this go? Or is it just
going to continue whether I want it to or not?
Probably.
Yes, it is going to continue. No, actually, behind the scenes, we've been bantering, and we're still having a good time, having fun setting this up. And we actually have multiple Gobsteins already planned coming up. So there's a mobster version coming up in the future. So Goblin mobsters. We're talking about a Goblin correlation to the American Revolution. Yes, which we have a Goblin version of the Declaration of Independence in the wings waiting for us. I call it the Declaration of Codependence.
Written probably on like a discarded gum wrapper or something.
Probably a very large gum wrapper, because it's a long document. But we've been having a lot of fun. We do plan on doing this. As far as publishing, I don't know what we're going to have in terms of publishable material. So because I'm approaching this, I'm a DM first, I'm going to be running the game primarily and make it as entertaining as possible. If that gives us something that we'll have the stream recorded, that'll be preserved for posterity on streaming sites. I'll upload that to YouTube and every platform that'll have it. And if there is something to be gained from doing a publishing, turn it into a book or anything like that, I am willing to pursue that. I just don't see that as something right now that's going to come out of it. But yeah, we're planning future events. Matter of fact, there's so many ideas being thrown about already that we're talking about doing another event perhaps 6 months from now.
Yes.
And another, yes. So as a matter of yeah, I want to set up a Gobstein for each of your Goblin related games.
Oh wow, man, thank you.
Yeah, because again, now if you don't mind, I want to hijack this conversation. Ask you, where did your love affair with Goblins begin?
I was just talking about that on yesterday on my live stream when I was talking about this. I think on some level, in my mind, they've always been ridiculous. There's just something innately ridiculous with them. So as far as I can remember playing or running the game, there was always just something, like kobolds are the scary ones, because they fight dirty and they're organized. But, goblins are just sort of this massive horde of chaos who just sort of do things, and occasionally they work. So
I get it. They're kind of weird, whimsical, and they're, of all the humanoid races, they're kind of the silliest.
Yeah. I think there is a sort of a built-in silliness of them, even though they, when they originally were chaotic evil. There's just, and then when you look at even the earliest artwork, and especially the Pathfinder artwork, there's just this running idea of, if you're small and crafty, how do you maneuver yourself through a world that's not built for you? So you'll see pictures of like goblins wearing barrels as armor and wielding a frying pan, because that's the only thing that's their size. And then you move forward to like Jim Henson's Labyrinth, and you remember the Goblin City. And there was all this ridiculous stuff going on in the background. There's like a scene where one goblin stuffs another goblin in a cannon and shoots that goblin out of the cannon. So that just built up more and more of the ridiculous in my mind. And then when Magic the Gathering came out, the original red, goblins had these like, Goblin Balloon Brigade, Goblin Rock Sled, just all these silly things of just goblins, just or sort of combine a puppy with an engineer, but the engineer doesn't have the directions. So they have all this energy. They're very mischievous. They're, curious to the point of self-destructiveness. They love doing anything just for the sheer joy of doing things. So I always imagine that they're the ones that take the jobs nobody else in the dungeon wants, Nobody else wants to clean out the latrine. The goblins are like, we'll clean it out. Nobody else wants to feed the giant monster. The goblins are like, we'll feed Kenny to the giant monster, Clean out the lava. The goblins are there with their brooms trying to clean out the lavas. And then of course between Gur from Invader Zim and the minions from Despicable Me, that just seemed to even more cement in my ideas that they're just ridiculous. And then my friend Aaron, my co-writer, Dungeon Janitor, you guys have seen a lot of his art. He has this long running series of goblins that he drew for years. And when we used to game over at Seth's Games and Anime, he would make these drawings and just hide them in the store, hide them in people's closet. I mean, you guys have seen, I'm sure, hold on, if you haven't seen the art. So this is all Aaron's art.
We're goblins! Space goblins! We're goblins!
So yeah, that's all him. So that just added to the ridiculousness.
Yeah, absolutely. And these kind of things, they have so much character and life to them, even though it's technically a more simplistic art style and lines. This has so much more character to me. This makes me want to sit down and play.
Yeah, so that's how it got started. And then it just sort of spiraled into, what if the goblins were in space? What if the goblins were in the Old West?
And so now there's 4 works that you've shared with me to go up as raffle prizes.
Yes.
I know one of them is Goblin Waffle Apocalypse.
Goblin Waffle Apocalypse. That's actually the first one. That was a game we ran at Seth's, like the last 2 years before Seth closed. Fallout was just becoming really, really popular. So we did this really ridiculous apocalypse game it was basically Fallout. With the computer being the computer from Paranoia.
Yep.
So
and
they would come out of the they would we waffles instead of bottle caps. They were, we couldn't violate the copyright. But basically, and then that's how the whole imaginary city of Fresno got born. And we had one girl who just took over a tower, and her whole thing was she just collected all the office equipment. And anytime anybody got close to the tower, she would throw the office equipment out the window to squish them. And that was her whole thing. We had another player who tried to rescue all the animals from the zoo. It was just like this ridiculous. And at one time I had like 16 players, and like, it was just, everybody loved just being in the apocalypse, but being silly. So that was the first. And then I wanted to do Weird West. So then Aaron and I did a Fistful of Goblins, and then we did Goblins in Space, and then we just sorted the core rules, which is the fantasy one, which I think we're going to redo this year into a bigger core rules, depending upon his time and mine. But yeah, so yeah, it was all this. It was Goblins. And then we just decided Shadow Dark because, I want to be famous.
Well, again, I think there's such a smart business decision there. Shadow Dark is poised. Its greatest weakness is actually its greatest strength. The only real criticism I've heard against it is that, it focuses only on the dungeon crawl. Yeah, which leaves everything else to be expanded upon. So now we just got a release that's a mass combat system.
Mhm.
I got the Shucked Oyster from the Black Lodge Games, and they have a setting. It's a adventure location or module that just gets grafted into Shadow Dark. There's room for independent authors, particularly because Kelsey provided a third party license for
Yes, thank you,
people.
Kelsey.
As awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. She's awesome. Love that lady.
Yes.
She has done so much for the hobby. I think she's done more for the hobby than anybody else in this part of the century. I don't know. I'm exaggerating slightly, but
At least in the last couple of years, definitely.
in the last couple years, yeah. But she built up a great audience in the fifth edition ecosystem over there with that crowd, and then off ramped herself into the indie world and brought so many people with her. How many people have who would never have considered OSR games or older editions of D&D or just even different games altogether have now given them a shot because Kelsey brought them along with Shadow Dark, provided them a doorway. Kudos. Yeah, I can't praise the lady enough.
Yay, Kelsey. So before I came along, why did you guys pick goblins?
So I'm a goblin fanatic myself. I know this. I look like a fairly well kept human here, but
Yes,
I'm
you do.
actually a goblin. I am a goblin king, and my love affair with goblins started back around 2000, and it was kind of similar to what you said. It was a natural consequence of my D&D campaign that I was running at the time. It was my first third edition campaign, brand new characters, first level. The very first encounter, they get attacked by goblins at night outside of the inn. The sorceress throws down a sleep spell, which takes, all the goblins down as you would expect. And then the rest of the PCs begin methodically slaughtering the goblins, as you do.
Yeah.
Right. But the sorceress said, no, that's wrong. The chaotic neutral sorceress threw herself over top of one goblin and preserved his life.
They always
Right?
adopt one, don't they?
They always adopt one. Well, that one that got adopted ended up living under her van, underneath her wagon, where there was a little cubby hole for luggage. She cleaned it out and turned it into a little cubby hole for the goblin. and then they just never heard from him. He was always around, but he was always sneaking and stuff like that. And within a little while, I was like, so he's pretty much like, you leave him alone, he's allowed to eat as much as he wants, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, he's starting to get really fat then. So he's this porky little goblin, and he fell in love with her, pledged his love, and as part of the campaign, she says, oh, well, I'm a princess, and I need to marry a king. So he decides he's going to go off and become a king of goblins. So he left the group, and a whole bunch of stuff happened to him off the scene. And then he returned to the campaign later on as a full-fledged goblin king, and he looked much more like David Bowie than that. He looked much more like if you mishmashed Dream from the Neil Gaiman comics and David Bowie from the Labyrinth movie. That's about what the character Maglet looks like. And he's been this sort of immortal, fae-like goblin king.
That's awesome.
So it's been a major factor of my campaign world ever since then that there's an active effort to civilize goblins and integrate them into the greater empire, as opposed to them just being mindless, kill on sight and everything like that. It's been very fertile for storytelling over the years. There's been a lot of plot. There's a lot of things. It's introduced all kinds of things to my campaign. Not the least of which was, in most cities, goblins show up to take over a contract to work the sewers.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's a natural thing. It's just like, nobody else wants to work down there, but the goblins are just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then the goblins turn around and hire adventurers when they have things like infestations of giant spiders or an outbreak of the undead or something down in sewers. Needs cleaned up. Let's hire some adventurers. So that's how my personal love affair of goblins began. And ever since then, I've been pretty much a goblin fanatic, and I got in touch with my inner child, and I found that my inner child is a goblin.
Yes, I think so. Having worked with kids, yeah, kids are goblins. Goblins are kids.
Yeah, they're inexplicably dirty. Like a comedian said a long time ago, you can just leave them in a corner, and then dirt just like sort of appears on them, like
Yes,
pigpen.
yes, yes, and just that, yeah, the playfulness and the innocence and the self-destructiveness that only a child can play
So,
out.
so I think you probably get the same sort of pushback and attitude. Isn't it funny how there's such a strong culture mindset within the gamers that goblins are they are beasts, they're irrevocable evil, they need to be slaughtered, even the newborn one. So what's your take and pushback on that?
I mean, they have, in the current game and all my other games in the past, they have slaughtered them. And I'm sure if we go back long enough, there were times of just kill everything, including the babies.
Absolutely.
But I remember one game when I played in college with Christine Morgan, and she used that against us, the kill the babies, where, suddenly there's a bunch of baby bugbears and we're like, do we kill them? Or, and just that,
Right. Well, and
the moral question suddenly dawns on you, and she really played up the guilt of, killing undefended, innocent babies, and how does that make us different than them? And so, yeah, I've never been a fan of the wholesale slaughter, but I know my characters are. I think it basically depends on, from a player character point of view, not if you're not being just a pure murder hobo, it's what have they done? When they kill the goblins in my game, it's usually because the goblins are doing something to circumvent them. If the goblin's following them and can't convince them, it just works there, which is the
it's hard to think there's anything wrong with defending yourself or your home or other people and stuff like that.
Why are you following us? So I got to kill you so you don't go back and tell people about us. But yeah.
And, to state the obvious, it clearly depends on how the DM declares it in their game world. I mean, I can totally accept in a game world where they say it's Middle Earth style. They are it's baked into them. They're built evil from the ground up, and there's just no changing.
Yeah, true.
Versus as the game has trended, as we've seen over the years, they're much more treated like they're another species. Yes, they're primitive, even savage. Maybe they're not very smart. Maybe they're not very sophisticated or cultured, but they are a species, and they do have the capacity to be good, just like dwarves are mostly good, but can be inclined to be evil.
Exactly. Yes.
They can be. So, but yeah, it was a big change for me to lean into that as part of my campaign setting and say, no, this is a huge thing, that goblins are being called forth, drawn in to the greater empire, and they're a huge contributor to the bottom line of all things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I figure if they want a small race to beat up on, I've got the kobolds, and the kobolds are definitely just vicious. If you've ever read Tucker's Kobolds, I mean, once you fight a kobold on its turf, you're dead.
Yes, I was just pestering Yodano on X for hey, you get Tucker's Kobolds. You got to throw that story out there, because he does that from time to time. But Tucker's Kobolds is a great story.
So my kobolds are always vicious, but the goblins, they're always they're kind of there.
They're there, right?
They're there doing goblin stuff, and occasionally that goblin stuff intermixes with human stuff. There's this great module, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called Child's Play. It's from TSR. It's part of the Greyhawk series. And the first encounter, the players have to go. It's a stupid, escort quest, find the lost thing quest. The king's dead. They can't find the thing that shows the lineage, so nobody's sure who the next in line is, but they know it's buried with the king. But nobody knows where the king's buried except for this one guy. So they send the players to go find the one guy. And the very first encounter is they run into a bunch of goblins who have found a rod of splendor. So the very first image, and I read this and it was hilarious. I was laughing out loud reading a module of just this image of a bunch of goblins running around in a field, all wearing, 100 gold pieces worth of clothing and costume jewelry, banging pots and pans together because they'd been told to get a rabbit, but they weren't told what the rabbit looked like. So they've been gathering everything they could find, shoving it in cages just to be sure. So when they run into the player characters, the first thing they say are you a rabbit?
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's just like, they're just doing their goblin thing, and the characters just stumble across them.
And you said that was a TSR production back in the
Yes,
day?
it's called Child's Play. I may be the only person who's
Amazing.
ever played it. And it's just hilarious. That first encounter, all the encounters in it are pretty hilarious. There's one where the characters get beaten up by the rabbit. Turns out the rabbit is the high-level character. It had been polymorphed, and they have to try and figure out how to unpolymorph him.
That's fantastic. You know, over the years, I've really drifted away from using modules. Because for one reason, I've been like, well, I don't want to read modules because I'm a DM may want to run that for me someday.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil the adventure. But I've also found that modules don't fit my DMing style personally.
I use them just as guidelines, yeah.
Yeah. So it's very much that way. When I sit down with players, I very much like look at the character that they brought and say, you know, this is what they want to do. And rather than have any sort of real game plan for the campaign at large or the storyline or what the big bad guy is going to be, I look at what the characters are built to do and build the game around that. That's where the campaign goes. If I have 3 people all sit down with thieves, or rogues at my table, then we're running a rogue-centric campaign. It's that simple.
Cool. That's nice. Is there anything else you want to say, or any links I need to throw up?
So
I got the Discord, which I apparently need to pay more attention to.
No, we got this scoreboard. We do have a Gobstein community on X. And some people can be added to that. You can ask to join if you're interested in having more info there. And we're using that hashtag Gobstein throughout X for easy finding and stuff. I know that they say hashtags are on their way out, but we're using them anyway for increased visibility. And also tag me. I'm the ringleader here. I'm the DM of this little endeavor at JP McCarthy JR on X. That's
cool. Thank you, Jack, for telling us everything. Do anybody out there have any questions for Jack? We've got a couple people. We see Cyrus. I was raised a poor orc child. Velma, any of you guys have any questions? Velma, love your work with Scooby-Doo. Any questions for Jack before I let him go?
Velma's my wife.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Velma wife.
So it's kind of funny how I look like Shaggy, kind of, right? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, Shaggy, if after a few years, maybe in the mines, but yes.
Brilliant. And Cyrus Wright, thank you, sir. I'm so happy to see you here, Mr. Wright.
All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, I'm going to let Jack go because I believe it's about 6:00 in his neck of the world.
It is slightly past 6, but we're doing good.
I live on stupid California time and everybody else lives on real time.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it real time. Does time really exist? I think it's kind of an illusion. I mean,
wobbly, timey-wimey.
It's just their way of holding us to arbitrary productivity goals.
Time and relative dimensions in space. Do you have any questions for me, Jack?
No, not.
I guess I gotta get together with you and make my character.
Thank you. Yeah, hit me up on DMs and we'll do that. And anytime you want somebody to want me to hop on the show and talk more, or for anything about this or for any other thing, I'd love to come back.
Well, I mean, after it starts, we might want to do like a by day wrap ups where you can
Right.
talk through what happened during the day if you want. Or
I'm even open to the possibility. I'm planning on it being mostly play by post until that culminating event. But if something happens where somebody's going to explore a dungeon and we need to live stream that, hey, I'll hit you up.
Great.
I'm not opposed to that.
All right. So Jack has the links for all the PDFs that I've sent him, I believe. Do you need me to send them to you again, or you have?
I have them, sir. I have them.
I have some physical product that I'm going to give Jack a list for the raffle, and I assume that will be all explained once the thing actually starts for how people can donate to the raffle. and stuff like that. We've still got a couple days for us to bang everything together. Jack says there's one more spot, so I don't know. We're holding it out for somebody.
We
Possibly.
have one more player slot open.
I don't know. I'd say, the goddess of, if you haven't already reached out to her, Ginger, she is the goddess of Braunstein.
Well, I didn't want to pressure her, but I would love to have her participate. And spoiler
Remember,
alert,
everything's her fault.
I am tentatively scheduled to be on her show this coming Sunday.
Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'm going to leave you with this amazing song and amazing artwork by our good friend Aaron Dungeon Janitor Cornelius. Check out Aaron on Instagram. He is one of my closest, dearest friends, and he is the godfather of all things Goblin, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, and then we'll let Jack go.
Space Goblins. We creep through the stars. We're small and green. Don't need a cloak to go unseen. We mine the rocks. Space gnomes don't dare. Small but mighty, you best beware. We're goblins. Space goblins. We're goblins. Space goblins. Creep through the stars. We're small and green. Don't need a cloak to go unseen. We mine the rocks. Space gnomes don't dare. Small but mighty, you best beware.